Hello, I'm Alistair Greener. Welcome to the Telegraph Studios and Business Reporter's Performance Improvement Campaign, hosted by the Telegraph Online. Today, many organisations are facing huge challenges to find growth in a turbulent, chaotic and unpredictable market. Entire industries are being disrupted by new technologies brought to market by smaller, faster and leaner competitors. Braian Bäkon from Oxford Leadership is here with us to talk about what's required from a leader's perspective in what's being called the Fourth Industrial Revolution and what the key success factors are for good leadership in this environment. Good morning.
Hi, Alistair.
Now, we know that technology and the business environment is changing all the time. So what would you say is the definition of strong leadership and what does it actually look like?
Good leadership is what makes organizations go faster. It makes them more adaptable, and that's primarily the thing. There's so much change just hitting organizations today that those that survive will be those that are able to adapt. And to be perfectly honest, you know, leaders are really struggling with this, and not possibly for the reasons that most people think. I mean, leaders are failing not because they try unsuccessfully to change things, and they're failing because they try to stop things from changing. And it is a challenge. I mean, and organizations are failing because of their inability to be able to withstand the impact of these disruptive technologies, being able to be fast enough and agile enough to be able to adjust themselves to completely different market conditions. And, you know, it's tough. I mean, you look at it, 25% of today's workforce will be gone, replaced by robots and algorithms within the next 10 to 15 years. You look at those at the top 500 companies, in the year 2000, 40% of those companies are just extinct. They've gone. The average lifespan of a big company 50 years ago was 60 years. Now it's 15 years. You know, and it's only just now creeping up on people what the impact of all of this is. And so the answer fundamentally is adaptability and speed, and of course the kind of leadership that makes people passionate enough to be able to introduce these changes in an environment which is frankly pretty scary.
So what are the key factors in leadership to be able to achieve the speed and agility that you were talking about?
Look, our research shows three things fundamentally, and there's obviously a broad range of them, but three things stand out above anything else. The ability of leaders to be able to create an internal compass for their organization. See, what leaders and what everybody wants, we all want a roadmap for the future. Does anybody believe that you're going to have a roadmap for the future in the kind of volatile, unpredictable world you've got now? It's just not going to happen. But what great leaders can do is to provide a compass so that people are able to adjust and give sense of direction of where they're going. And with this, in leadership terms, we talk about a common purpose. Secondly, it is speed of decision making, the ability to be able to devolve decision rights and mandates and authority to highly networked teams of people that will speed up decision making, that will make you faster. And then the third thing, and is deeply implicit in that, is the virtual abolition of organizational silos and replacing them with distributed teams that are hyper-connected and are able to work together, much like the military is now reorganizing itself to face opponents like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, smaller networks, special forces teams that are hyper-connected to their headquarters and to each other.
Now, earlier on, you talked about the senior businessman who said that 40% of businesses will be dead within a decade.
Yeah.
So if I'm an organisation that wants to break that statistic, what are the sort of things that I should be doing?
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, I think that was John Cisco from the ex-CEO of John Chambers, the ex-CEO of Cisco, who made that comment that, 40% of their large enterprise customers will be meaningfully extinct within the next decade. And how will you avoid that, and what's necessary to be done? And I think that the following things really come to mind. Firstly, we can talk about what I've already discussed, about speed and agility, etc. But how do fundamentally you do that? When you look at the companies that are really changing, the big traditional companies that are changing, they're shifting their mindset from the way of thinking about their organizations, from mechanical science, in which like a big complicated clock with all the parts and the wheels and the cogs that fit together, which is kind of how they've been organized in the past, to be thinking instead more like a living system, seeing their organization through the lens of biology, and looking at their organization as a whole rather than integrated parts. And that might sound a little oblique, but in fact, when you understand that your organization is an organism and it's an ecosystem of ecosystems, that's the way in which the organizations that are most successful in adapting to change and making themselves fast enough to be able to change, that's how they're doing it. That's the mind shift.
Okay, so let's talk about you. What do Oxford Leadership do? And maybe more importantly, what do you do that others don't do?
Yeah, we're a specialist leadership consultancy, and we're pretty well distributed. We work primarily with large organizational systems, and we're global. We're in all the major continents, and we cover most of the cultures, which, you know, for the kind of companies that we work for, which tend to be older, larger, more complex, and very global, but are facing headwinds and competitors which are smaller, leaner, technologically more advanced in many cases. That gives us the ability to be able to serve with a consistency across their markets and globes. That within itself is just simply size. What I think differentiates us from a thought leadership point of view is what I've said before. We develop leaders through a mindset of biology. Instead of looking at organizations as clocks and old industrial machines, we help leaders to develop a new thinking, a new mindset about the organization as living organisms. And what that enables leaders to be able to do is to be able to adjust themselves and adapt their way of working in a way which is more organic and is more natural to a human-centered organization.
So how does this living organism actually make a difference? What's the end result of that?
Yeah, it makes organizations faster. It enables you, instead of having decisions which have to travel up the line through multiple levels of hierarchy, looking at your organization as a living system enables you to be able to see how organizations can take responsibility to connect to each other. Small, integrated teams, hyper-connected, that get things done through communication and relationship, through collaboration, as opposed to authority and control. Now, not only that is it more efficient, it makes you faster, it makes you more agile. My God, it's so much more fun. It's much more fun working in that. I don't know if you've got kids, but I tell you, I don't know anybody that has kids that likes to be told what to do. Am I right? Well, I tell you, adults like it even less. And so when you're working in an environment where you've got more authority, you're trusted, you're more respected, to be able to make decisions about the work which is most meaningful for you, it creates more passion in the organization as well.
So what kind of organizations are you working with at the moment?
Well, as I said, they're large, they're big, and they're facing a lot of headwinds. And they're having to adapt to really dramatic and disruptive change. That's generally the precondition. We get engaged to help accelerate performance. Sometimes we get engaged to turn the ship back up, you know, a ship's capsized, big organization. We work for the largest, fastest growing high-tech company, the biggest company in the whole field of the Internet of Things. The world's biggest industrial chemical company, the world's biggest container shipping company, one of the world's biggest banks, FMCG retailers. So you get the picture. There's a diversity of industries. They're all large. They're all facing very, very complex change issues.
So to sum up, it seems that you're saying adaptability will always triumph over hierarchy.
Hands down. You know, look, if you have an organization that just exists with, you know, silos that don't talk to each other, you're not going to last 3 years. You know, forget about the next decade. You're really just not going to last. You cannot survive in this environment with a top-down control and command siloed organization. Unless you can adapt to this speed of working, you're just going to be gone. And at the end of it, you know, this is the way that you're not only going to create your organization and prepare your organization for survival. These are the key success factors: speed, agility, cooperation, collaboration, and looking at your organization as a living system. That's the answer.
Well, you've certainly given us a great new clarity to the definition of leadership in today's business environment. Braian Bäkon from Oxford Leadership, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.